the oligarchs are almost to a man in favor of depopulation. That's what the whole COVID thing was about. That was a bioweapons program that was designed to kill as many people as possible. And it succeeded, but it was just a test. Everything that we're fed by the media, 100% of what we're told is fake. The United States is collapsing. We're just totally awash in debt, and we are led by the most corrupt people in our nation's history.
Hey, welcome back. And today we're with returning guest, Bob Moriarty of 321gold.com. Bob, how you been?
I am afraid to open the internet. I am afraid to go to CNN. I am terrified of opening emails. There is too much crap going on.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. It just, of course, when you're like us and you're on the internet quite a bit all day, it's just there's just a slew of information that's just being a barrage of information that is being thrown your way. Perhaps you can situate us by providing kind of your kind of high level overview as it relates to what's going on right now in the world. What do you think is most important?
That's a good question. You started off with a home run. Bibi Netanyahu went to Washington the end of December, and he fed a gallon and a half of speed to Donald Trump. He gave him its marching instructions, and we've invaded Venezuela, and we're threatening Iran, and we want to put Jerome Powell in jail, and we've got troops on the border with Mexico, and then we're going to go after Nicaragua, and then we're going to go after Cuba, and we're bombing Somalia, bombing Sudan, and we're going to steal Greenland. What a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Do you know why we're doing this?
I assume that the official narrative is to posture the U.S. in a more favorable way as it relates to Russia, China, or these perceived threats.
Nah. The DOJ has released information saying 1% of the Epstein files have been released, which suggests that the 99% that has not been released in contrivance of the law passed by Congress unanimously means Donald Trump is terrified of what's about to be said. Now, here's where it goes better. Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent. The Mossad has actually admitted that he worked with/for them. The former prime minister of Israel visited Epstein dozens of times, and it was not a casual visit. He was there to pick up the 10,000 audio and video recordings. So I suspect that when Bibi visited the White House, he opened his computer and he showed Donald and said, "Hey, you want to see some really great videos of you?" And Donald said, let's see, what can we do about that? Bibi said, "Go to war against everybody, including Greenland. That will divert everybody's attention from the Epstein file." And the reason Bibi said that was it worked for him. Why do you think he attacked Hamas and Hezbollah and Syria and Lebanon and Iran? Because he wanted to divert attention away from the fact that he's being tried for corruption. This is a diversion of the American people's interests. Sometimes it goes into the point of being ridiculous. Can you remember all the way back to when Donald Trump was going to lower the Department of Defense budget? That's what he was elected for. And last year, the budget was about $1 trillion. Now he wants to raise it to $1.5 trillion. Now, give me a break. Why do we need to spend 50% more money on war this year than we did last year? And the answer is somebody told them to do it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. The United States is adding $1 trillion in debt every 100 days. And that's totally unsustainable, and it will destroy the United States if we don't get our financial house in order.
No doubt, you know, as it relates to Trump and Netanyahu, I had Makia Freeman on, and he dived into the cabal. And it is my understanding now that Trump is part of, if I'm saying this right, Chabad Lubavitch. And, you know, I'm still kind of learning a bit about this sect, but that is to pinpoint on the cabal that he is part of that. I've also heard that Putin is part of that. I guess Putin was raised by people as a kid by this sect, and that is at the core heart of it. And so I'm sharing that to just kind of to add another wrinkle to the whole Epstein thing as well. That that they're also trying to foment and bring about their, I guess the term is messianic or kind of end of world prophecy or whatever, fill in the blank. Not to mention the occult undertones behind it. So yeah, it's I think I think we're in for a wild ride here this year and into next year economically, and then militarily speaking.
Well, do you have any idea? I don't know if we've talked about this in the past. When the Israeli soldiers, the IDF, go into battle in Gaza, they've got a patch on their shoulder. Are you aware of that? And it's a
Yeah, you're
map.
referencing.
Yeah, it's a map of greater Israel. It's not a map of Israel, it's a map of greater Israel. And that's everything from the Nile to the Mercedes, yeah, close, to the Euphrates. Uh, this interesting situation that they make no bones about it. They intend to steal part of Egypt, all of Lebanon, all of Syria, part of Iraq, and part of Saudi Arabia, and let's see, one more country there, Jordan, all of Jordan, and as far north as part of Turkey. And the amazing thing is, they don't make any bones about it. Every one of the soldiers has that map on their shoulder. But the key is, people think, well, they want to control the Middle East. And you just raised a really good point. My point is, they do not want to control the Middle East. They want to control the whole world. And they already control Europe, and they already control the United States. They own the president of the United States. But it's a flawed theory that they've tried many times before. It was the Jews who were the revolutionaries in Russia, and we know how well that revolution went, and the answer was not very well. We can look at Israel and we could think they would like to turn the United States into Gaza. And frankly, I don't think they'll succeed. I hope they don't succeed. But that's exactly what their vision of the world is. And it's very dangerous.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I have, and I've been, I've tried to be thoughtful as it relates to what is discussed and what is talked about, just in general, right? I feel like I like anybody who is creating content, especially topics like this, where you're trying to find that sweet spot between, okay, how can I talk about real things that are going on that are important, but also dealing with censorship and trying to, you know, navigate that. And I have been fascinated by, and I don't mean, and I'm certainly going to have this dominate our conversation, but just really trying to go down the rabbit hole of who's in power, who's running the show. You know, why do I hear this? Why do I hear that? And I feel like personally, and I've done a lot of episodes where I've kind of unpacked that with the pros, is that I feel like I have a pretty solid grasp. It may be imperfect, but I feel like I have really like just kind of a high level overview, and I'm just sharing the occult undertones that certainly mainstream media is totally bereft of, but a lot of even alternative media sources, a lot of, and I won't name the names, but I know who, we know these people. There's no mentioning of it. I feel like there's a lot of people just get caught up in left right divide, and I hear about City of London a million times, and which I'm not saying that, I'm not discounting that, but there's just so much more, and I get it why you can't talk about those other things, but and I'm just sharing that because this part of this occult undertone just further it appears that they want to bring, and again, it sounds really cheesy, corny, Bob, but they just want to bring about, global hegemony, technocracy, depopulation. Again, I sound crazy saying this. If anyone were to hear me who doesn't know I do a show, they'd think, "What are you talking about, Christian?" And I think wars and these other means and methods are going to be the way to do that. And I think until there's a lot of pain for the average Joe, whereby they are unable to, let's say, feed their kids, only then will people then protest and vocalize themselves. But I'll shut up and I'll let you chime in and continue.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. I mean, what should be obvious to anybody with a double-digit or higher IQ is somebody is behind this, and the real question, who is it? Now, I believe that there's a conflict between the debt-based system of the West and the resource-based system of the East and the South, and the power economically is shifting to the resource-based system of the East and South. If you look at the country of Israel, it's in total chaos. There are ports that have been shut down. They're totally dependent on the United States fighting their wars and supplying them with money and munitions. Israel is not a safe, sound, rational country. It's a country totally out of control. And there's something in religious terms, those who live by the sword are going to die by the sword. And the United States and Israel are the most aggressive nations in world history. And we're going to pay a price for it. It's that simple. But all of this is organized, and somebody is behind it. Now, the debt-based system in the West, which has been in power since 1492, is collapsing. And the resource-based system of the East, which is Russia, China, India, Iran, Brazil, those guys recognize what's happening and they're against it. The attack on Venezuela was not really an attack on Maduro. It was really an attack on China. And there's lots of American military people talking about how the next victim, how the next conflict will be between the United States and China. And quite bluntly, the United States doesn't have a chance in hell of defeating China. The Chinese people are very bright. It's a big country. And some of the stuff that you mentioned, like the depopulation, if you take all of the organizations of the oligarchs, the World Economic Forum, the Club of Rome, all of those things, the oligarchs are almost to a man in favor of depopulation. That's what the whole COVID thing was about. That was a bioweapons program that was designed to kill as many people as possible, and it succeeded, but it was just a test. But what's happening now is the evil that is Zionism has been exposed to the entire world to see, and people are waking up to the fact that, hey, I don't want to live in a prison camp. I don't want these people ruling me because, quite bluntly, they're sociopaths, and that's not a commentary on the Jewish religion. Some 62% of American Jews are against what's going on in Gaza, and some 84% of Israeli Jews support it. So you have a dichotomy there. But the religious fanatics are in charge, and they're in charge because Bibi Netanyahu is afraid of going to jail. So he is catered to the nutcases.
Yeah, he has definitely. Okay, so you touch a number of things, and I think it's interesting how again there's so many different terms for it, and I'm also trying to be cryptic and mindful of YouTube and such, but it is really fascinating to see how Netanyahu and that whole cabal has I think of the how they have tried to leverage people of the Jewish faith around the world to pursue their agenda, and a lot of these people are not aware of the sinister nature of it. And again, I'm using sinister. It sounds kind of out there, but to those some listening, but they have this parasite has used it as a vehicle, and I want to say it because I think Makia Freeman mentioned it, because I know a lot of people say it's the Jews, it's this or that, and I think that's dangerous rhetoric, because there's a lot of good people that have want nothing to do with what the Israeli government is doing in that cabal, that clique, and so I think when we say that, right, people are going to go after the the Goldbergs down the street or so and so, but. And I think it's so interesting how Netanyahu's government has done such a nefarious and evil job of trying to galvanize anybody who is Jewish or they perceive, and I'll go as far as to say that Netanyahu and them are not even Jewish, that they're fake, they're crypto, and
So let me go one better. Okay, you just raised a really good point. What is Ellison trying to do?
well, I know he's trying to. I mean, he's trying to take over everything. I mean, I believe he bought TikTok. He's got his son.
There's absolutely no bones about it. He appointed Weiss to be the head of CBS. And it was funny. Did you see the interview between her and Erica Kirk?
I saw clips of it. I didn't sit there and watch the whole thing.
Okay, which of those people was the most evil?
I think they're both evil, but I'm assuming you're probably going to reference Kirk.
That's what I was really looking for. You could look at both of those and say you were dealing with evil people. And whatever David Ellison's idea was of putting Barry Weiss in charge at CBS, she came across like an absolute monster. And she did that interview with Erica Kirk. And Erica Kirk needs to stay off the media. Okay. That's one evil looking witch. So that was an interesting situation. Now, you can have lots of dollars and no sense at the same time. And Larry Ellison and David Ellison, his son, don't have a lick of sense, and they're trying to take over the media. And it's so obvious that they're on an agenda, and their agenda is evil, that I don't think they're going to succeed.
Oh, for sure. And I say this as someone who is not, I don't consider myself like some religious zealot or out there, albeit I tell you what, the more I've learned about this stuff and I've gone down the rabbit hole, I've definitely become more religious, if you will, because I realized, okay, yeah, there's definitely a higher power there. And because, right, I think of polarity, right? If you have beautiful, there's ugly, right? There's dark, there's light. And so I think these people are like possessed or something. They're definitely part of that occult clique. And I'll mention as it relates.
Yeah, hang on. They have not made me believe in God, but they have absolutely made me believe in Satan. I know Satan exists because I can look at Bibi Netanyahu. I can look at all those leaders of Israel. I can look at Gaza. I can look at the West Bank. I can look at the Houthis. Those are evil people. And the devil is in them. Okay, so I don't know if there's a God, but I do know there is a Satan, and I know who he controls. And frankly, Donald Trump is their whipping boy.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think he is. I think he is part of that. Again, I've heard it's Chabad Lubavitch. Actually, there's a rabbi. he is kind of like he's kind of like a saint. I keep blanking out on the guy's name. He died years ago, but he is somebody that I guess Trump and certainly Netanyahu and all of them have praised. And some of the vitriol, the things that he's referenced to people, to the Gentile, to the Goyim, is just asinine. I mean, this is crazy shit. This is absolutely crazy stuff.
You can go to Google and you can put in the largest funeral in Israel history, and it will take you to the funeral of that rabbi, and it will show you all of the things he said. The strange thing is, they don't even try to hide things anymore. They come out and absolutely say, you guys are going to be our slaves. One of our fingernails is worth 1,000 of your lives. And then they turn around and prove that it's true. They have no concern about anybody in the world but themselves. And you just raised out a really good point. There was a book written and a bestseller in Israel called The Invention of the Jewish People. And Shimo Sand wrote the book, and it was a bestseller. And very few Americans have read this book, but it's well worth reading. And he has proven in the book that the actual Ashkenazi Jews who run Israel today are not even Jews. They have no connection rationally, historically, biblically with Israel. They were converts in the year 1000, and they control Israel today. Frankly, they're monsters.
Oh yeah, and I think the rabbi's name was Rabbi Schneerson. I could be wrong though, but I think that may be the guy. Yeah, and look, candidly, I've been trying to. I wish I spoke Hebrew or some of these other languages because I'm very intrigued. I'm actually I'd like to get the Talmud. Like I want to find a faithful copy of it because I want to read it because I see this stuff on X, and I'm sure some of the stuff that you see on X and these social things, I'm sure there's misquotes and some stuff you see like, oh my gosh, is this really? So I definitely want to. Actually, I'm a guy where like I want to see the source. Like I want to see it. Like you're saying this, okay, but let me go. But even if 60% of what you see out there is correct and the 40% is just misquotes or people getting confused, I mean that's still so alarming. But back to the Ellison and them, I just wanted to make a comment that this is just tangential, but Ellison, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Zuckerberg. Altman. I mean, I feel like they have this narrative of, oh, we just started in our garage, and I think most people have no clue. And I'm not saying I know with certainty, but I'd say a high degree of certainty that these people were funded by our tax dollars through these alphabet agencies and through Mossad to create technologies and platforms where they harvest our information, our data, and they sell this lie that they just, little Jimmy started in this garage and worked really hard, and this is how he became a multi-billionaire. So I start to see like this is complete bullshit that they put out there.
Well, everything that we're fed by the media, 100% of what we're told is fake. The head of the CIA in 1979 came out, said the CIA would know they had accomplished their goals when everything, their disinformation to the American people meant the American people were not told the truth about anything. And it's absolutely true. And the three-letter agencies absolutely started all of those companies, funded all those companies. And strange enough, listening to these people talk, you're dealing with people who are not dealing with full deck. Those are some spooky, spooky people. The Carp, the guy who's in charge of Planeteer, he's on drugs. You can watch him doing the interview and know you're dealing with a guy who's on drugs. And they're so arrogant, they just take it for granted that because they've got all this money, that they control everything. And they think they have control, but there's a lot more of us than there are of them.
Well, I saw him, doing that interview with that one guy, where he can't even sit in his chair. He's clearly on something. You mentioned, again, tell you what, Bob, as I've gone down this rabbit hole, I'm just like, I don't know what to believe anymore. It's crazy. I know you mentioned months ago about Starmer and Macron, and I think it was Mertz. They were doing cocaine or something. I mean,
That was the
I'm just
train.
like,
They were taking a train from Germany to Kiev, and Mertz and Macron were sitting at the table, and Starmer walked in, and he had a photographer with him, and the photographer took pictures, and you could see Mertz take a plastic baggie and drop it into his lap, and Macron covered up something else. And any parent who has ever had a 5-year-old child can look at the child and know when they've had their hand in the cookie jar. And that's absolutely what happened. But if you listen to Mertz and Starmer and Macron and that idiot running the UK, you know these people are on some kind of drugs. These people are crazy. If you listen to Zelensky, and here's how accurate the media is. Zelensky had a bagman, and the institution in Ukraine that was investigating corruption caught the bagman, went in, searched his office, and they found $100 million in cash. And they found receipts for $2.6 billion in wire transfers. Now, if you look at the receipts, you know exactly where the money was going and who was behind it. So our buddy in Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe, was stealing literally billions of dollars, and the mainstream media has nothing to say about it. And he's funny. I was in the military. You see the guy running around trying to look like he's in uniform. He was given 3 draft notices in 2019, ignored all 3 of them. But every time you see him being interviewed, he's wearing a camouflage green, so he's being one with the soldiers. Well, if he wants to be one with the soldiers, why doesn't he grab a rifle and go out and go to the battlefield?
yeah, it is deeply disturbing. Especially I feel like when I mentioned this I think previously, but I feel like when people hear about a conflict going on or something that has happened to people, it's intangible, it's abstract. But then when you see videos or you see people getting blown up and you see it, and it becomes visceral, it becomes real. And I'm just floored by the amount of casualties and deaths, and I see it just as completely waste. And anybody who says that, or even the stuff going on in Europe, the economics of when they say like, "Oh, it's just incompetence," I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. There is a hidden hand or hands at bay, and someone is benefiting from this. This is by design. Full stop. It's crazy to me that people still subscribe to that.
Well, here's what's amazing. Somebody came out and they checked newspapers and local records and cemeteries, and somebody did a good job and listed 1.7 million Ukrainian soldiers who were either killed or disappeared. And granted, we don't know how many were killed. A lot of them deserted, but 1.7 million Ukrainian soldiers have suffered greatly as a result of the CIA and Zelensky attacking Putin's residency. Putin told his generals, okay, we need to wake Kiev up. So they did. And there are hundreds of thousands of people in Kiev right now without electricity, without water, and without heat. And tens of thousands of them are almost certainly going to die. Now, if you ask yourself, what are they dying for? There's no rational answer. It's a stupid war that should have never taken place in the first place. There was no chance whatsoever Ukraine was going to win it. Now, I wrote a book about my experiences in the military. And I'm a very funny writer, and some of it was actually very funny. And I needed a cover. And I was driving from London to Geneva, Switzerland to visit a friend of mine. And I stopped at a town in eastern France near the Belgian border. And I passed a tiny cemetery with a few hundred or perhaps 1,000 gravestones in it. And I wanted a picture, so I took a picture, and that picture is on the cover of my book, The Art of Peace. And the interesting thing was that I realized by walking around this graveyard and looking at the names and looking at the dates and looking at how old these kids were, and they weren't kids. If you want to understand war, anybody can do it. All you have to do is go spend an hour or two walking through any military cemetery. Because at the end of that trip, you're going to look and say, why did these people die? And the answer is for nothing. And we're still doing it today. And the CIA was behind the attack on Putin's residency. It was incredibly stupid. It's typical CIA, and it's going to cost the lives of tens of thousands of Ukrainians who frankly, want no part of the war.
Yeah, they have they are chattel to the powers that be. And I've been to Arlington. I think I've been a couple times, and different cemeteries, and it is very moving. Yeah, incredible loss of life. I don't know if I mentioned to you, I have a neighbor about a mile from me. She lost both of her sons in Iraq.
Uh, I was in Vietnam for 20 months, and the last few months I was at a utility squadron in Da Nang, and I get to fly VIPs around. I was going to Saigon twice a week. I was going to Thailand once or twice a week. And God, I had a point to make. I wonder what the point was. I know what it was. I was on duty one night. I was a duty officer, and you're supposed to walk through the area and see what's going on and make sure nobody's getting in trouble. And they brought a guy to me who had deserted. And I said, "What's your story? Why did you desert? Where are you? Where are you supposed to be?" He said, "Well, I was supposed to be going home tomorrow." I said, "Why would you desert?" And he said, "I want to go back to my unit." I said, "Why would you want to go back to your unit?" He said, "Well, we had 5 boys in my family, and 4 of them were killed here, and I want to get even." And I said, "Are you kidding? Are you going to do that to your mother, who has lost 4 of her children, and you want to make sure she loses a 5th?" And I made sure he was on that aircraft, period. And I just thought, God, that's the most horrendous thing I've ever seen. I can't imagine a family losing 2 kids or 4 kids. That's horrible. And for what?
Well, I not to sound say this ad nauseum, but I again, I know people say it's very cliche. They reference Smedley Butler, and I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah, my dad was over in he was in Kuwait during I guess it's called Operation Iraqi Freedom, and I just remember I was real young when he left, but yeah, something happened to him. I mean, wow, that completely changed my life. And now that I know the sinister reasons as why we went into the Middle East, and I don't mean to have this dominate our conversation here, but yeah, I feel personally slighted by a lot of these leaders, Bob. All of them. I think we need to have a Nuremberg trials 2.0. This is really asinine, and everybody gets so caught up in. And I'm not, whatever. People get so caught up in whether it's sports or this entertainment or this thing or that thing, and it's just crazy to me all the stuff that goes on, and it's allowed to go on. I mean, I even hear I'm going off topic here, but I even hear they're trying to renovate the Federal Reserve or something. They're trying to do. I mean, it's just like why does it even still exist anymore?
Well, those are all really good points. And Americans are so oblivious to what's going on now that they simply don't pay any attention. But Victoria Nuland, who certainly belongs in a dock in trial in Belgium, Victoria Nuland was directly responsible for the murder of 100 people because she went to the Nazis, who she had paid $5 billion to, and said, look, we're not getting enough tension here. What we need to do, you need to get up in the building to start shooting people. They said, who should we shoot? And they said, shoot them on both sides. We need to kill at least 100 people or there won't be any publicity. And that's exactly what they did. And they were shooting policemen and they were shooting protesters. They were shooting innocent people, just casual as they could be. But Victoria Nuland and Hillary Clinton, I can't figure out which one of them is the most evil, but they are evil people. And it's a measure of the decline of values in the United States. The United States is collapsing. We're just totally awash in debt, and we are led by the most corrupt people in our nation's history. Now, let me prove that to you. Have you read anything about the average IQ of the Somalis in Minneapolis?
No.
It's 67. Now, if you cheat, you have to get 70 to qualify as a moron. And the Somalis in Ohio and California and Minnesota have stolen $18 billion through total fraud that anybody could see was fraud, and nobody cared because money was being shuffled through them to the Democratic Party. We're at end of empire. Empires end when they begin to get involved in meaningless confrontations, meaningless wars that they don't have to get involved in. The French Revolution occurred because the King of France got involved in the American Revolution. And the revolutionaries in the United States would have lost the war. They won the war because of the French, but it bankrupted France, and hundreds of thousands of people died in the revolution as a result. And it took somebody like Napoleon. Napoleon killed a lot more people than died from the guillotine, but it took a power freak to take control of the country. The United States is collapsing. It's obvious collapse if anybody would pay any attention to it. And it's an evil country.
It definitely has. You mentioned a number of things, and I also wanted to reference some of the articles that you put up. I'm looking at my notes here real quick here. I mean, we're hearing talk about. I'll spit some stuff out, and then you let me know what you want to dive into. Venezuela, Greenland, Trump's latest actions, ICE killings. Clinton's won't testify in Epstein probe. Trump cancels all meetings with Iran. Calls on protesters to take over the country. And we talk about Israel dropped 900,000 on American right-wing influencers in last year. Look at the fires in Argentina, protests. I saw you made a reference to the Teutoburg forest incident, Venezuela and Trump. Any of those that you want to dive into?
Greenland. How many times have you been to Greenland?
Not once.
I don't know any Americans who've been to Greenland, period. I've been to Greenland about 10 times. I've flown through there 6 or 8 times, and I went on a visit to a mining project. Somebody came up with a great quote this week and said it would be easier to mine on the moon than in Greenland. There are 55,000 people in Greenland. There is no support whatsoever for mining. And while the country is over, there's a ton of natural resources. You just can't get to them. And if you could get to them, you couldn't afford to. So the idea that we somehow should seize Greenland, I'm just absolutely astonished. Let's go into Jerome Powell. The idea of bringing criminal charges against the head of the Federal Reserve because you want to lower interest rates. Wait a minute. You're not in charge of interest rates. You're the president of the United States. You don't get to make that decision. The idea that the president of the United States should be the president and the operator of Venezuela. Are you kidding? So something that's going on. Trump has been totally out of control since Bibi showed up, and I'm convinced it's because of the 99% of the Epstein files that have not been released. From a philosophical point of view, I hope he does not attack Iran. From a practical point of view, I hope he does attack Iran. Because if he does, it will be the end of the Zionist empire, period. Iran has the ability to flatten Israel. And the United States and whoever's telling Trump what he can and can't do, there's going to be a lot of dead Americans at the end, and it will be the end of his presidency. Some of the stuff like kidnapping Maduro, if Maduro had died in office, it wouldn't have made any difference than the situation today. The United States and the sanctions for 20 years on Venezuela has created a broken country, and nobody in their right mind would invest in the country. That's an attack on China. And I think that what China did about silver on the 1st of January was their counterattack. China now controls the production of 60 to 70% of silver in the world. Silver is absolutely in high demand, and China controls the supply, and that could easily be just as important as the supply of rare earth elements. Trump is surrounded by a bunch of bumbling idiots, and they're giving him bad advice. And the idea that he's going to convince China to roll over and play dead just isn't going to happen. The Chinese are a lot smarter than Trump's administration.
Well, no doubt. I mean, you look at China as a whole, how homogenous, how I understand. I guess there are a myriad of different ethnic groups there, but by and large, you juxtapose that with American society, and I look at just even I was outside my area the other day and went out for breakfast earlier this morning and just kind of seeing people in it, whether it's they got the nasal rings going on or they've got colored hair or this or that going on and also just seeing people. I mean, there's not I don't see the ambition or the drive and just so many problems here in society. You look at, I'm just going off on a quick tangent here, but OnlyFans, seeing that more and more, a lot of young women going to that, seeing that as a vehicle or as a means to make money. A lot of young men sequestering themselves, becoming, I mentioned that I have a family member like that who's kind of sequestered himself. All of these are signs of decay. And you look at, at least from the optics that I see, Bob, over in China, there's a lot more of a drive and an industrialistness I'm saying that wrong. And yeah, and I suspect that, and I'll just add one more thing, is that it's looking like the parasites, the cabal, they have, just like they went from, let's say Spain to the Netherlands to to the US to, remember, they're going from Europe, right? And that 1492 kickoff, as you alluded to now going to Asia, their resource-based system, and China already looks like they have that technocracy down with the social credit score, and you cross the street wrong, we're going to deduct from your bank account immediately. That's the model, and this is just going to turn into a carcass.
We have lost track of value. And let me offer you a thesis. The French invented the metric system at the time of the Revolution. And prior to the metric system, every town had different measures for weight, had different measures for length, had different measures for quantity, had different measures for liquid. And the French came up with a system that you got a meter, you've got a gram, you've got a liter. And everybody could use it and everybody could agree. However, one of the things that should be fixed, that it's not fixed, is the value of money. Now, I can tell you with great confidence, if we took from noon today until noon tomorrow and looked at the number of changes in, say, the British pound against the dollar, or the euro against the dollar, or the Canadian dollar against the US dollar, there would be 1,000 changes. Goes up a tick, down 2 ticks, up a tick, down 2 ticks, up 2 ticks. The currency is constantly changing. Now, if you were a tailor and the length of a meter changed once a week, how good would your shirts be, or your dresses, or your suits? And the answer is they wouldn't be very good, because none of the sleeves would match, and one side would be too long and one side would be too short. Currency should be fixed. If a Martian landed in the United States and asked, "What's your unit of weight?" Well, we use a gram. Oh, that's cool. And what's your measure of quantity? Well, we use liters. Oh, okay, that's cool. What's your measure of temperature? Well, 0 is where water freezes, and 100 is where it boils, because we need something that's fixed. Great idea. Okay, and how often does your money change value? 1,000 times a day. You'd say, are you people nuts? How can you have money as a variable? Because if you have money as a constant variable, you know the price of everything, but the value of nothing. And as soon as you get away from real money, you no longer have any concept whatsoever of value. And that's where we are now. And you raised some good points. I did an interview a week ago with a couple of guys from California, and they talked about how sick the sexual mores are of young people today. And I was just mouth agape going, what? It was absolutely astonishing. Now, let me go even one better. Now, theoretically, part of the reason the United States invaded Venezuela to go after Maduro was about drugs. Now, given that Donald Trump is Jewish, if Donald Trump went to Jesus, who also was Jewish, and he said, we need to do something about this drug problem. And Jesus said, well, what do you suggest? Well, why don't you kill all those drug dealers, all those drug smugglers, all those drug dealers once they're back? Jesus said, well, they're going to die anyway. All I could possibly do is accelerate it. So he goes back and he kills them all. So as of tomorrow, There are no drug dealers in the entire world. Is that a victory?
I don't know how to respond to that. Yeah.
Not a victory. How long would it take to have a new crop of drug dealers? A week? 2 weeks? A month? The problem with drugs is not supply. The problem with drugs is demand. Now, take a wild ass guess at what country in the world has the greatest demand for illegal drugs.
I'm assuming the U.S.
No shit. Over 50% of the illegal drugs in the world are consumed in the United States. And while I do not support the use of illegal drugs, the United States has a drug consumption problem. And I have been to areas in Nevada and areas in California and areas of Miami where it was dangerous literally to walk the streets. And everybody's drugged out. And I'm going, this is crazy. We're the richest society in world history, and everybody's on drugs. So we need to change, and I believe there will be change, and I hope that it's change in a good way. You got to go back to the fourth turning, and that we either go full-blown totalitarianism, or we start having people wake up and start demanding freedom. I hope we start seeing leadership. I hope people recognize freedom is a good thing. And I hope the people that are led by Satan lose their conquest.
Well, in your last remark is certainly not hyperbole. They are 100%. And this is for those tuning in who maybe are not familiar. I mean, they are for sure Satanists, like full stop. Yeah, that's a very deep rabbit hole, and I've been going down it. They are 100. Yeah,
very meaningful rabbit hole. We're not being misled. We've got people who absolutely have a black agenda, and it's an evil agenda. And I have no problem saying this. What's going on in Gaza, that's evil. There have been so much stuff that the Zionists, and I differentiate between the Zionists and the Jews, even in Israel. Zionism is an evil faction, okay? It's a bunch of religious fanatics. There were two soldiers standing on a corner in a street in the West Bank here a couple of weeks ago, and a kid was walking down the street like 20 feet from them, and they grabbed their rifles and shot the kid. The kid didn't do anything. That was cold-blooded murder, and that's evil to do. Well, what did the United States do in September? We blew up a ship under the theory that it was carrying drugs, but the ship had 11 people on it, and the ship was smuggling, but it wasn't smuggling drugs, it was smuggling people. And two of the people survived. And 45 minutes later, the Department of War decided, well, damn, why don't we just murder them too? And that's evil, okay? The laws of international conflict, the laws of war, the Geneva Convention calls for not attacking defenseless people. So the United States is duplicating what Israel started. I was in combat for 20 months. I killed a lot of people. I didn't murder anyone. And I never shot at kids, and I never shot at women. And the only reason I killed people was they were shooting at me. And I thought fair was fair. But what the United States is doing now, and we've killed 100 or 200 people under the guise of them being in the drug trade, and we're just murdering people casually. That's evil.
Well, and then we're yeah. To your point, where do you draw the line between who's a terrorist or who's this and who isn't? And I'll also add that I suspect that we will have to see things get more painful for people until people change and wake up, because it does seem I do see the technocracy. I do see that furthering. And I saw a video and someone mentioned about how they had went to the store. I think it was Walmart or something. I don't know. You may have seen the clip, and they paid cash for an item, and they did not have their phone with them either. And they received a receipt regarding the item, or it was some message from, I think it was Walmart. It said, thanks for shopping. And the person that created the video, Bob, was like, well, how did they know that I bought this? And people in the comment section mentioned about, surveillance cameras, how they can check your facial recognition and see what your shopping habits. So I thought that was spooky. I think these people that are trying to create this technocratic world, they're trying to see how far they can get without people just flat out protesting. But yeah, I think a lot of what we see has been planned for a while back. I think Albert Pike's 1871 reference to the Third World War was very telling.
Right. Well, here's what's happening. The guy really behind that was Carp of Planeteer, and he's shithouse rat crazy, period. And he's on drugs, and he wants total control. And Miller in the White House said, murdering people is perfectly okay. Might makes right. Those are evil people. But what's going to happen, and the price of gold and the price of silver reflects this, those are barometers or thermometers, as it were, of chaos in the financial sector. There is going to be a financial collapse in the United States. There is no possible way to stop it, to prevent it, or even slow it down. The Trump administration is accelerating the decline of the United States. And when people can no longer get food and feed their family, they're going to be some kind of pissed, and they're going to be looking for people to hang. And all these technocrats, with all their billions of dollars, are going to find out they're very convenient targets. If you go back to the French Revolution, I think the numbers were there were 35,000 aristocrats at the beginning of the French Revolution. There were about 21,000 people killed on the guillotine, and a lot of the rest of the people literally left France. And at the end of the revolution, there were only 3,500 of the original 35,000 aristocrats. All these guys with all their money, they're going to find out people don't give a fuck when they have no food for their children.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, the French Revolution is a pretty fascinating and very dark chapter. Obviously, the Reds versus the Russian Civil War, Russian Revolution, pretty barbaric over there as well. It's looking like, and especially with the ICE incident that occurred, that ICE killing, that we're going to see we are going to see civil strife. We're gonna see George Floyd 2.0.
You just raised a really good point. Somebody is trying to create a revolution in the United States. Now, are you aware that the ICE agent who shot the woman had been involved in another incident similar to that, where somebody had literally caught his hand in the door and dragged him for hundreds of yards and was trying to kill him? If you look at the video of the woman in the car who was deliberately trying to obstruct ICE, she drove into the guy. Now, did she drive into him deliberately? No. But if you look at the camera that was on his shirt, he was hit by that car. Okay? And strange enough, somebody tried to drive into me, I'd shoot him too. But the media is trying to portray a good guy, bad guy situation. And the media is encouraging a revolution. And frankly, we're in a country with 400 million guns, and we've got at least 10 or 20 illegal aliens. And if they start picking up guns and shooting people, we're going to have a revolution in the United States or a civil war.
100%. I think you had it. I think this was your article. I pulled it from or something else. It says Neil Young urges Americans to rise up in new editorial criticizing Trump. Now, yeah, I mean, to me that's indicative of that. There are these hidden forces that hidden hand, definitely trying to stir the pot. So I would say a high probability, full on shootouts in the street, in pockets throughout the U.S. and I presume also in Europe, and then also I hear about these protests with Macron. I mean, what are you seeing out there over in France?
That's an interesting situation. There was a law that the EU just passed in the last week that had to do with importing grain and food products from South America. And the farmers in Europe who are subsidized by the government were dead set against it. We have highways here that have been closed. I wish my dog would shut up for 5 minutes.
Oh, no worries. No worries. I can. I'll do what I can as far as the audio goes to kind of minimize that. But it's fine. Yeah,
but
it makes it more real.
It's one of those situations where there's two sides to it. And I understand the side of the farmers, and I also understand the side of the EU government. European citizens have a right to inexpensive food, but when governments start subsidizing energy or food, it always ends up in a Chinese fire drill. Governments are not smart enough to understand price. So they always get it wrong, and people always get upset as a result. But there's a serious problem in Europe of demographics, first of all, and what is essentially a Muslim invasion, second of all. The idea that Europe would bring in tens of millions of immigrants to Europe who have no intention whatsoever of becoming French or German or English or Italian, but want to maintain their religion and their habits, is it's especially foolish to me. But at the same time, countries like Italy, France, Japan, Korea, even China have a terrible demographics problem. And 20 or 30 years from now, there isn't going to be any Social Security in those countries because there isn't going to be anybody working to pay the taxes. In Japan, there's more people over the age of 65 than there is under the age of 20. And nobody wants to have sex. Nobody wants to have children. And it's going to destroy the Japanese economy eventually.
Well, and I suspect that that ties in with Agenda 2030, with the whole depopulation, right? I've become more cognizant of what am I consuming in my body, and also what am I putting on my body, whether that's shampoo, deodorant, toothpaste, even the polyester, right? I mean, like a lot of the clothing I have has like whether it's like a golf shirt, or your socks, or fill in the blank, that leaching into your body, and how that impacts hormones.
Can you give me 30 seconds? Let the dog out so we don't have to put up with that.
Do your thing. I have another show at the end of the hour, so probably in about maybe 15 minutes we can wrap it up. But I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying it. If you want to continue whenever you're ready, you
I'm ready. We should actually talk about resources because there's some scary things happening.
Okay, yeah. Let's dive into it. You want to perhaps kind of share your latest thoughts?
Okay. Uh, Gold and silver have literally made new record highs in the last couple of days. And there's some scary things going on. The price of gold, according to the COMEX, I think is $86 right now. According to the Shanghai price, it's 93. So you've got something very strange going on there. Now, I generated some numbers. In 1964, a quarter would buy you a gallon of gasoline. It would also buy you a loaf of bread, or it would buy you a quart of milk, and it would buy you 8 first class stamps. That same silver quarter today is worth $15.73. So should gasoline be $15? Should bread be $15? Should milk be $15? Should stamps be $2 a piece? There's a dichotomy between what's cheap and what's expensive. And I think both silver and gold are very expensive right now. And I think it's a response by the Chinese and the oligarchs in an attack against the financial system. And I think it'll end badly. I don't know if it'll end being $300 an ounce silver or whether it'll end being $1,000 gold. But the financial system is about to blow sky high.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I've been tracking that, and I've been trying to educate myself on learning how to trade. Candidly, I'm kind of behind there, so I'm trying to play catch up. Yeah, you okay? So you're alluding to the metals, the sentiment, and in response to what is going on out there. What are some other things that you feel are not receiving enough attention in light of time?
Strange enough, there's so many things. Every time I get up, there's something else that surprises me. I think the idea of the President of the United States bringing criminal charges against Jerome Powell. Trump is a control freak, and he wants to force interest rates down. And he believes he should not only be president of the United States, he should be president of Venezuela, and he should be the head of the Federal Reserve. And for a guy who's, say, 7 times bankrupt, I don't think I want him in charge of the money supply.
No doubt, no doubt. What are perhaps some other things regarding Trump and his actions that you're tracking, if you care to share?
Uh, the Ukraine-Russia issue concerns me greatly because it's so dangerous. And while Trump pretends he gets along with Russia, the United States is still funding the war, and the CIA is still running their chicken shit little operations like attacking Putin's house. That's a war that never should have occurred in the first place. The Ukrainians have already had more soldiers killed than were killed in France in World War I. Now, when World War I started, there were about 40 million French, and when the Ukraine war started, there were about 40 million Ukrainians. And the number of dead is about the size in both situations, and that's frankly insane. Every village in France has a monument to the soldiers who died in combat. Now, my wife and I had a little farm here in Luke-de-Burn, and the church there had 106 young men who were killed in World War I, and they had 6 in World War II, and 2 in Indochina, and 1 in Algeria. And when you looked at the list of the names, there were 2 or 3 children or young men with the same last name. Now, whether it was one family or whether it was a multi-family with the same name, I don't know. But World War I was so catastrophic for France that they demanded Germany be punished, and the Treaty of Versailles led directly to World War II because it was so harsh on the Germans. Uh, the Ukraine war is going to vibrate for the next 100 years.
Well, again, I think it was all part of that design. I'm hearing from some people that, it was all one continuous war with a pause. Those interwar years between the First and the Second World War, and then this. Yeah, I just think, so many people that I know, including myself to some extent, we're all in our bubble, right? It all seems just very distant, but I think things are going to start to catch up to a lot of people, and they're going to feel it financially and in other areas. Anything else you'd like to share before we kind of wrap up, Bob?
Are you familiar with Ed Dowd, D-O-W-D?
Am I familiar with Ed Dowd? Yeah, I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
Okay, he's an absolutely brilliant guy. He's a financial guy, very smart, very experienced. And I listened to an interview by him today, and he said there is so much bad information today. We know the mainstream media lies about everything, but you can go to YouTube, and there are literally tens of thousands of fake AI generated videos, and some of the videos are actually fairly hard to discern that it's AI. But people with an agenda, and this could go back to whoever wants to control the world, who's generating these things, it is getting harder and harder and harder for ordinary people to discern what is real and what is false. And that can only lead to catastrophe.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot more AI videos in circulation, and it does become harder to see what is real and what isn't. But with that being said, Bob, how can people learn more about you and get in touch with you?
Well, a couple of different ways. They can come to my website. It's free website, 321gold.com. And we talk about economics, and we talk about mining, and we talk about wars, and we talk about things that are interesting. Or they can go to Amazon, and I've written about 10 or 12 books on a variety of subjects, and I'm a very funny writer. And they're good books, and they're certainly topical and timely. So I would highly encourage going to Amazon and looking. And what I tried to do is I've made the electronic versions as cheap as possible. So you can read my books, and I think all of them cost 99 cents in electronic form, or you can buy the paper books. But we do what we do because we're trying to help people. This is an exceptionally dangerous period of time, and there is so much misinformation floating around and stupidity from governments that you need to find sources of information that you can actually trust. And those are few and far between.
100%. And I appreciate you. One of the reasons why I love having you on is you're candid. You speak and share your mind, and I think that resonates with a lot of people. And a lot of people don't have the agency or the autonomy that you have to be able to be vocal like that, right? I mean, a lot of people they've got to deal with politics, whether it's work or just other wrinkles to life. And so always enjoy having you. I always enjoy hearing your thoughts and how you. And I also appreciate how you just kind of give a holistic kind of overview of things, whether it's financial related, military related, society, et cetera. So yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation on another episode.
Very good.
Hey, I want to thank those of you who support the show. The show is on a number of platforms. So whether you're watching this from YouTube, X, Spotify, Rumble, you have a number of different options from which to choose from. And if you have suggestions as it relates to guests, please feel free to reach out. I'm always looking to bring on interesting people that I think have something unique to share. And if you're finding value in each guests in each episode, I encourage you to like and subscribe. I'm always having to hammer on the subscribership and following because, as you might surmise, when it comes to inviting guests on the show, people want to see the numbers. They want to see how many followers you have, how many subscribers. It's a vanity thing for a lot of these people, but that's the game. So if you're finding value in it, subscribing, liking, even sharing, that helps. And if you have suggestions, I'm always open to your feedback. And if I can be a resource even outside of the show, let me know. I'm blessed to have a great Rolodex. And anyhow, hope you're doing well. Be well, and I look forward to hearing your feedback.